Okay. Okay, so the second presentation today is about Neil Denari, who was born on September 3rd. This is an architect from the United States whom I actually met a few times. And I will show you some of his works. It's not a presentation that makes me totally happy, because I need to study further his work, but it will create a certain image about this architect who was the director of SciArc in Los Angeles for 5 years, and he received many awards, and you will see some of his works now. He's an interesting architect, but it's a little bit difficult to talk about him after Louis Sullivan. I agree. This is the man. I mean, he is, a contemporary architect, and I think it's important to also talk about contemporary architecture. So this is an occasion now. When I met him, I only met him once or twice. We were associated with an architecture. I talk in English because Abdullah doesn't know Romanian very well yet. He was, we were associated with an architecture gallery in New York, Storefront for Art and Architecture. And we were very involved in all kinds of exhibitions and activities at that time. Here he is, maybe at SciArc as part of a jury, because he is not just an architect, but also an educator. He was born in Texas and, trained in architecture and so on. This is what made me, in a way, make this presentation imperfect as it is, because in 1985 I was part of an exhibition called Independent Visions in Architecture, and you see my name and his name, Neil Denari, Stephen Hall, the others, Bill Lane, Kyung Park, Site, and Levius Woods. This was in 1985, so a long time ago. But I show you now some images from his website now, which is in the process of becoming a work in progress. So, it says you see new website soon, but I like this temporary website that he has. Even the color he chose, I like it. So he's working on a new website, and you can have access to it. But in the meantime, he just shows what I'm showing you now. And there is written there, do what your heart tells you. I would agree with him. But, it's easy to say it, it's easy to write it, but it's difficult to do it. But I believe it's true, yes. Let's try to do what our hearts tell us. But again, it's not easy, because often the society is against you in expressing your heart, and not just society, who knows, all kinds of things. Anyway, again, it's a little bit strange to show his works after Louis Sullivan. He did many projects. He built a few buildings, but not too many, but he did a lot of projects. The most prestigious competition that he almost won, he won the second prize, was for the Tokyo International Forum, a competition won by Vignoli, Raphael Vignoli, and he built it. But Neil Denari won the second prize. Well, the second prize is not built. Anyway, bank, the word bank appears again there. This is, you see, we are far away from Sullivan. We are in the 21st century, and in Los Angeles. The Taipei Performing Arts Center, this was a project he did for a competition. He does a lot of competitions, and here it is, digital modeling of this theater. And I think this building could have been good if it was built. But as far as I know, as yet it was not built. He's very skillful. When I met him, he did amazing models and drawings. He was extremely skillful and very minute. And we were both published in a Japanese architecture magazine, an important one, A+U, Architecture and Urbanism, A+U, as being part of the group around Storefront. There were other 5 architects whose work was shown, and he exhibited some of the early works of Neil Denari. I read recently in Sucker Punch Daily that a student valued very much the early works. And I also think that the early works of Neil Denari seem to be more interesting than his later works. But it's possible that he makes some compromises now because he wants to build. And you know, it's not easy to build as your heart urges you to do, unfortunately. So this is an exhibition he did. Stephen Hall created the Cultural Center, upstate New York, and the T-Space Gallery. And Neil Denari exhibited displaced buildings in aperiodic city. You know, a theoretical study using projects he did for various competitions and proposals and so on. So the exhibition showcases 11 inkjet drawings and sketches of Neil M. That's an initial of the middle name, Denari architects, unbuilt projects from the past 7 years, ranging from port terminals to museums. Each project was originally designed for specific contexts in various cities. Aperiodic cities, an urban accumulation organized around self-similar proto-blocks. This is what he writes. It is at once like all cities in that it is made up of building forms that vary only slightly across an expansive field. But like no other city, it is also based on a system rather than a meta plan. It is an idea that is neither emergent nor parametric, but simply vaguely repetitious, incredibly persistent, and appearing in more than one form, proto-block. Now, the language is maybe a little bit, you know, too much of our time. It is an idea city and the city of ideas. And you see some of his projects, and he created a city, theoretical city, with some of his projects for various buildings. A number of buildings designed over the last 7 years have been displaced from their original context as a life-enhancing act, given that their material lives never began. Designed for specific contexts in various cities, they now occupy peculiar voids in aperiodic city. I don't know exactly what he means. Aperiodic, I mean, probably he meant ahistorical, so not historical. In this new context, these buildings take on new meanings, yet they retain all the attributes of their original locations. But the location is not strictly limited to place. It also includes time, and in this, they are all imbued with ideas that are located on an endless curve that strangely oscillates through architecture and urban culture. The drawings are very abstract. This is called the No Mass House. We are going to see also some buildings built by him, the Student Center. These are abstract representations, but they do say something about what Neil Denari is about. A cash tower, interesting. Clash, not cash, sorry. Clash, the Clash Tower. But you see even here ornamentation, you know, in his own way, he ornamented, and it's true in his case, structure is sometimes deviating, deviant, so to speak. It becomes ornamental to an extent. And this is a plan of this aperiodical city, displaced buildings in aperiodic city. Interesting plan. and highly ornamental, is it not? I think it is. So through this plan, it's a site plan with his buildings brought together in an idealized space, in this aperiodic city. But if you look at it, you almost see somehow, if you read between the lines, so to speak, some elevations, some facades of Louis Sullivan. Now, amalgamated images from his works. What I did here, I just extracted from the web various images from his works without a specific order or even, analyzing a certain building. About some of them I know a little bit, so I will comment on them as we move along. But you become familiar looking at these works with his method of representation, with his graphics, and he was very good at this. I know he admired, plane building and maybe even ship building, and this is kind of shown in his architecture. This is not by him. I'm sorry about this. Later, I found out after I included it. It appears on the web with his name, but it's not by him. This is by him. And yes, you can be a little bit surprised by the colors of the background. Anyway, he did all kinds of, buildings, projects for buildings. And he built a little bit. The most important building is probably an apartment building in Manhattan, and you are going to see it. These are early works. I like Neil Denari when he becomes very visceral. Like here, this is a drawing of the project that he won a second prize with in the Tokyo Forum, International Forum competition in Japan many years ago. These kind of drawings that are so, intricate and organic in a way, in a mechanicist way, and visceral, I like. You see, 1988. This is another building from. This is not the Tokyo Forum, but it's another building done around that time, and I like these drawings very much. This is a newer work for a villa. Interesting how he places, you see how he writes the numbers there he's very knowledgeable about the digital technologies, and he's able to create this. In my opinion, is a little bit if you remove them, maybe the building becomes simpler, and maybe there is a danger to even arrive at simplisms or simplisticality, or you understand, not simplicity, not to something that is simple but simplistic. I don't know. It looks good graphically, but anyway, it's his specific way of searching for architecture, an architecture that he believes in. And as you can see, he's very skillful, but he was equally skillful when he worked manually. When I met him, he was working manually. And now he uses the computer and he works. Again, this is a drawing of his proposal for the International Tokyo Forum. Very skillful. And this is another page from that project. This is what he proposed. It's very, kind of in the spirit of archigram, and it's futuristic, it's mechanicist, it has some kind of a organicism of the machine, a certain complexity here that derives from, not from the natural world necessarily, but from the mechanical world. He's an interesting architect. Too bad that his last building that I'm going to show distanced them, again, probably because of the difficulty to get commissions with this kind of works. another building that he proposed, a rendering. I think is not bad. I think it's interesting. Too bad it was not built, but you know, even as a rendering, you see it's an abstract rendering. Is well, abstract, but also he uses shadows, and so it is well configured. This one is might be, no, it is by him. It's possible that even that image that I said is not by him, because I think it's this building. I see here his name, Neil M. Denari. Sorry, this is something he built in Japan. I think he did just the interior design and the facade. It's a restaurant or something. This is the apartment building in Manhattan, but we are going to see it in detail. That he built a villa, I guess around Los Angeles or in Los Angeles, on the west coast of the United States. This is the work in Japan, that restaurant or what it is, the same in Japan. Japan. Now we arrive at this family house, the Allen Wu family house. We already saw an image. He built it, and yeah, this is Neil Denari. I personally, I have a certain reticence vis-a-vis his works. I don't know if I'm not a little bit too tired now to say it in a succinct and clear way. There is a level of artificiality here and a slickness that to me is a little bit discouraging. I mean, look at this kitchen, you know, it's very, now it's true, if it is used and you just bring some bananas on a plate on that counter, you bring life to it. But as it is now, it's very lifeless and depressing, in my opinion, of that gray slickness. And but it still has some interesting, the space has some interesting, you know, like here, you know, the viscerality of the staircase with the light, and there are interesting things going on here. But again, this kitchen, I would rather not talk about it. So the plan seems to be, you know, nothing special about it, but you saw in terms of space, and maybe even the, you know, the, I don't know about the materials he used, are you know, I don't know. After Sullivan, it's a little bit hard to talk about Neil Denari, but I thought of doing it because I was connected with him at one point. It's his birthday today. I even wrote to his office about it, but I don't know if he read it. Anyway, now this, in my opinion, this is the most important building that he built, the High Line 23 in New York City. And it's an apartment building, and it is interesting, and it is a little bit different from other apartment buildings. You know, they advertise here, you know, High Line 23. It has a lot of glass, which for me is always problematic, especially these days. But he does a good job in, I mean, you know, if you look at this, you wouldn't imagine that these are, you know, apartments, because it confuses you, the scale. you don't realize how the floors actually are. So, but here again, the structure becomes ornamental. You know, it's when you just compare this building to this building. This is also an apartment building, but they look so dramatically different. So he monumentalizes his building through such strategies where you can't read any longer the floors. This is done in history, in the history of modernity. It's not him the first one who does it. Again, it's not a sustainable building. It has all this glass. What can you do? But it is, I think, an interesting building. The interior to me is a little bit, again, sleek, but that's maybe my problem, that I don't like sleek things and so much glass, which means it needs a lot of air conditioning, no doubt. And you can imagine these apartments are not inexpensive. I'm sure they cost over $1 million each one of them. And I probably was timid by saying just 1 million. So here you can see the floors, but not on the other elevations. These are generous apartments, of course. Several bathrooms, several bedrooms, you know. These are not for everybody. It's just one floor on one floor. You know, one apartment on one floor. I mean, you know, these are luxury apartments, no doubt. With the elevator opening just for one family, for one apartment on each floor. Anyway, now he calls it a unit, a view of a unit, but you saw the apartments are much more ample than what we see here. Anyway, it's interesting how he handles the structure, you know, in this, you know, moderately sculptural way. But again, the demagogy of glass is at work here too. Now, this is a work I'm beginning to, I end now this short presentation by showing samples of his last works. This one in 2021, so I guess the work was or will be finalized this year. If you look at this work, you understand why the student said, I like his early works, because this is more, less special, so to speak. And I don't find this work or some of the next ones very, very interesting. The Sunset Boulevard 2019, this was built. I don't know what to think about it. You know, there are these formal affectations here, which are interesting in a way, but I don't know. It's true. It's not my preferred kind of architecture. But even here, we see an attempt to bring sensitivity to the wall and a certain level of, you know, ornamentation or vibration, the tactile or tectonic vibration. In Beverly Hills in California from 2021, this building. So, you know, I guess it's during the construction. But even this one, I don't find it interesting, actually. I find it actually rather banal. I'm sorry, Neil. And then this is an artwork he did at SciArc. I repeat, he was the dean at SciArc for 5 years and very involved with the school still. He participates in juries and so on. And he's very knowledgeable about architecture and very well read. I witnessed there was a presentation of projects by students of Florencia Pita about architecture and weaving, and Neil Denari was there, the discussions on Zoom, and he was you know, showed that he read Gottfried Zemper, and he's a well-read man, and he is a serious practitioner, totally dedicated to teaching and to building, to architecture. He does many projects, but only a few were built. He built this at SciArc. I don't know exactly what its function is. It's probably a sculpture, some kind of an artwork. It's called Fluoroscape at the SciArc Gallery in Los Angeles. And it might be that I think this is the last image. No, La Brea Hotel from 2021 in West Hollywood, California. In my opinion, this is a disappointing work by him. I mean, look, in a way, it breaks your heart after you saw those early works, you know, very visceral, mechanicistic, but interesting, you know, sculptural and so on. This is almost a commercial building. You know, it's sleek and banal and you know, polished, but I'm really sorry that that Neil, but you see the constraints of life. There are important architects like Shin Takamatsu, who also in his later years began to design much more commercial buildings and, you know, looking almost banal. But this breaks my heart, because I understand you have to run an office, you have to pay salaries, you have to have an income, you have to earn money. But when I look at this work and I confront it with much more radical works of his beginnings, I think it's a loss. I think it's a descending and not an ascending. And this is sad. That's it. So we wish him happy birthday today on the 3rd of September.